She was 7 months pregnant, shivering in the freezing rain on a Manhattan sidewalk, while her husband toasted champagne with his mistress inside the home she built. Liam thought he had won. He thought Clara was just a penniless orphan he could discard like yesterday's trash. He didn't know that the orphan he just kicked out was actually the estranged heiress to the Vance empire. He didn't know that with one phone call, 2 of the most dangerous, wealthy men in the world were about to descend on his life with the force of a nuclear bomb. This is the story of how a cheating husband lost everything when he woke the sleeping giants. You won't believe the revenge that follows. The sound of the suitcase hitting the marble floor echoed like a gunshot. It wasn't just a piece of luggage. It was a vintage Samsonite that Clara had bought at a thrift store 5 years ago, back when she and Liam were starving students sharing a studio apartment in Queens. Now it looked pitiful, sitting in the foyer of the multi-million-dollar penthouse overlooking Central Park. "Liam, please," Clara whispered, her hand instinctively going to the 7-month swell of her stomach. "It's raining. It's nearly freezing. Where am I supposed to go?" Liam Sterling didn't even look up from his phone. He was wearing the bespoke Armani suit Clara had ironed for him that morning. He looked every inch the rising star of New York's architectural scene, handsome, sharp, and utterly devoid of the warmth he used to have. "That's hardly my problem anymore, Clara," Liam said, his voice smooth and detached. "I've booked you a room at the Motel 6 in Jersey City for 3 nights. Consider it a severance package." "A severance package?" Clara's voice cracked. "I'm your wife. I'm carrying your daughter." A laugh floated down from the spiral staircase. It was a sound like breaking glass, beautiful but sharp. Sophia descended the stairs, wrapping a silk robe around her waist. It was Clara's silk robe. "Oh, sweetie," Sophia purred, walking over to Liam and draping an arm over his shoulder. "Let's not be dramatic. We all knew this day was coming. Liam needs a partner who fits his new life. He's about to make partner at the firm. He needs to be seen with someone who understands high society, not someone who thinks Olive Garden is fine dining." Clara looked at Sophia. She was stunning, undeniably. The daughter of the firm's senior partner, Sophia was Liam's ticket to the top. Clara had known about the affair for 2 months. She had tried to forgive him. She had tried to cook his favorite meals, tried to dress better, tried to be the wife he wanted. But she couldn't compete with ambition. "Liam," Clara said, ignoring the mistress, "we promised, for better or for worse. Remember when you lost your job in 2019? Who worked double shifts at the diner to pay the rent? Who stayed up all night helping you draft your portfolio? I built this life with you." Liam finally looked at her. His eyes were cold, dead things. "You were a stepping stone, Clara, a placeholder. You were fine for the struggle, but you don't fit the success. Look at you." He gestured vaguely at her maternity leggings and oversized sweater. "You're just plain. Sophia is the future. You are the past." He walked to the door and opened it. The wind howled, blowing sleet into the warm foyer. "Get out, Clara. My lawyer will mail the papers. If you try to fight the prenup, I'll bury you in legal fees until you're begging on the street." Clara stared at him. The man she had loved for 5 years, the father of her unborn child. Something inside her fractured. It wasn't her heart that had broken months ago. It was her restraint. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply reached down, grabbed the handle of her battered suitcase, and looked him in the eye. "You have no idea what you've just done, Liam," she said quietly. "I've upgraded," he sneered. "Now goodbye." He slammed the heavy oak door in her face. The lock clicked, a final metallic sound of rejection. Clara stood on the stoop of the Upper East Side building. The doorman, a kind man named Henry, who had always liked her, looked away in shame, unable to meet her eyes as he held the umbrella for a resident walking a poodle. He couldn't help her. Liam had likely tipped him heavily to ignore her. She walked into the rain. The cold water soaked through her sweater instantly, chilling her to the bone. She dragged the suitcase 2 blocks, her lower back screaming in protest, until she found a bus stop shelter. She sat on the metal bench, shivering uncontrollably. She had $40 in her bank account. Liam had drained their joint account that morning. Securing assets, he had called it. She checked her phone. 14% battery. She scrolled past Liam's contact. She scrolled past her friends, most of whom were actually Liam's friends and would side with the money. She stopped at a contact she hadn't touched in 6 years. The name was simply listed as A. Her thumb hovered over the call button. She had sworn she would never do this. When she ran away at 19, she had promised herself she would make it on her own. She wanted to be loved for who she was, not for the billions attached to her last name. She wanted a life where people didn't bow when she entered the room. She had found that life with Liam. Or so she thought. She had played the role of the poor orphan perfectly. She told him her parents died in a car crash and left her nothing. She wanted to know that if a man married her, it was for love. And look where that had gotten her. Pregnant, freezing, and discarded for a woman whose father owned a mid-sized architecture firm. Clara laughed bitterly, tears finally mixing with the rain on her face. Liam thought he was marrying up by choosing Sophia. He thought Sophia's family was rich. Sophia's family was worth maybe $20 million. Clara's family spent that on horse stables. She looked at her belly. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered. "I wanted you to have a normal life. I wanted you to have a dad. But I won't let you starve." She pressed the call button. It rang once, twice. "Speak," a deep baritone voice answered. No hello, just a command. "Adrian," Clara whispered. Silence. The line went dead silent for 5 agonizing seconds. "Clara?" The voice lost its robotic edge, replaced by a tone of utter shock. "Clara, is that you?" "I need help," she sobbed, the dam finally breaking. "Please, I made a mistake. I need my brothers." "Where are you?" The voice was now sharp, alert. She could hear movement in the background, the sound of a chair scraping back, the murmur of other voices stopping abruptly. "Manhattan, 5th and 82nd. I'm at a bus stop. I'm pregnant, Adrian, and I have nowhere to go." "Stay exactly where you are," Adrian commanded. The menace in his voice wasn't directed at her, but she felt the earth tremble with it anyway. "Do not move. If anyone touches you, tell them you are a Vance. I'm sending Julian. He's in the city." "Okay," she whispered. "Clara." "Yes?" "Who did this to you?" "My husband," she said. "Liam Sterling." "Sterling," Adrian repeated the name, as if tasting a piece of rotten meat. "He's a dead man walking. Give us 10 minutes." 3,000 miles away, in a glass-walled boardroom in London, Adrian Vance hung up the phone. The room was silent. 12 of the most powerful investors in Europe were staring at him. They were in the middle of a merger negotiation worth £4 billion. "Gentlemen," Adrian said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. He was 6'4", with eyes like chips of ice and a reputation for destroying companies for sport. "The meeting is over." "But Mr. Vance," the CEO of the opposing firm stammered, sweating. "We haven't signed the papers. The deal falls through if we don't sign by midnight." "I don't care," Adrian said calmly. "My sister just called me. I haven't spoken to her in 6 years." He walked out of the room, leaving the billionaires stunned. He tapped his earpiece. "Get the jet ready. We fly to New York in 30 minutes. And get me the dossier on a man named Liam Sterling. I want to know what toothpaste he uses. I want to know his credit score, his secrets, his sins. I want to know everything. Meanwhile, in New York City, Clara huddled in the corner of the bus shelter. The sleet had turned to heavy snow. Her teeth chattered violently. A group of rowdy teenagers walked past, jeering at her, kicking slush onto her suitcase. She pulled her legs in tighter. Suddenly, the street went quiet. It wasn't a natural silence. It was the kind of silence that commands attention. A convoy of black SUVs tore around the corner, ignoring the red light. They were massive armored Escalades with tinted windows. They moved in a phalanx, blocking 2 lanes of traffic. Cars honked, but the SUVs didn't budge. The lead car screeched to a halt right in front of the bus stop. The back door flew open before the wheels had even stopped rolling. A man stepped out. He was dressed in a 3-piece charcoal suit that cost more than Liam's annual salary. He didn't have an umbrella, but he didn't seem to care about the snow. He was terrifyingly handsome, with a sharp jawline and the same dark, intense eyes as Clara. Julian Vance. The younger of the 2 brothers, known in the tabloids as the Playboy Prince of Wall Street, but known in the boardrooms as the Vance Viper. He spotted her instantly. His face, usually a mask of arrogant indifference, crumpled into pure horror. "Clara!" He sprinted the 10 feet to the bus shelter, sliding on his knees on the icy concrete to get to her level. He ripped off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shivering shoulders. "Oh my God," Julian breathed, his hands hovering over her stomach. "Clara, look at you. You're freezing." "Julian," she wept, falling into his chest. "I'm so sorry I left. I'm so sorry." "Shh! Shut up," he said fiercely, pulling her tight. He looked up at the bodyguards who had formed a protective ring around the bus stop, shielding them from the paparazzi who were already starting to gather, drawn by the commotion. "Get the car heated! Now! Get a doctor on standby at the plaza!" Julian scooped her up in his arms. She felt light, too light for a pregnant woman. Rage boiled in his veins, hot and acidic. He carried her to the back of the Escalade. The interior was warm, smelling of rich leather and safety. He settled her into the seat and grabbed a cashmere blanket, tucking it around her. "Who is he?" Julian asked, his voice low. He poured a cup of warm tea from a thermos and held it to her lips. "Liam," she whispered, sipping the tea, feeling life return to her fingers. "He kicked me out for his mistress. He said I was poor. He said I didn't fit his image." Julian let out a dark, incredulous laugh. "He said you were poor." "He doesn't know," Clara said. "He thinks I'm Clara Smith. Nobody knows." Julian pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. "Adrian, I have her. She's malnourished, hypothermic, and traumatized. But she's safe." He listened for a moment, his eyes fixed on Clara's tear-stained face. "Yes," Julian said into the phone. "The husband is Liam Sterling, an architect." "Oh, you already found him? Good." Julian listened again, a cruel smile touching his lips. "Buy it," Julian said. Clara looked up. "Buy what?" Julian hung up the phone and looked at his sister. "Adrian is currently on the phone with the bank that holds the mortgage on the building Liam lives in. He's also buying the architecture firm Liam works for." "Julian, you can't just—" "We can, and we will," Julian said, stroking her hair. "He wanted a rich life. We're going to show him what real wealth looks like. We're going to give him the world, Clara. And then, right when he thinks he's at the top, we are going to snatch it away." The car began to move, gliding toward the luxury of the Plaza Hotel. "Rest now, little sister," Julian whispered. "The Vance brothers are back in town, and tomorrow, hell is coming with us." The presidential suite at the Plaza was not just a room, It was a fortress of gold leaf and velvet. For the last 48 hours, it had been transformed into a high-end maternity ward. Clara sat up in the king-sized bed, propped up by 6 pillows. The colour had returned to her cheeks thanks to the IV fluids, and the private chef Julian had flown in from Paris to make her favourite broth. Dr. Aris Thorne, the most expensive obstetrician in New York, folded his stethoscope. "Her blood pressure is stabilising, Mr. Vance. But the stress, it was nearly catastrophic. She needs absolute rest. No shocks." Adrian Vance stood by the window, looking down at Central Park. He had arrived 4 hours ago, his jet-breaking sound barriers over the Atlantic. He hadn't slept. He looked immaculate in a navy suit, but his eyes were burning with a cold, terrifying intelligence. "No shocks," Adrian repeated. He turned to Clara. "Did you hear that? No watching the news, no checking social media." "I'm fine, Adrian," Clara said softly, her hand resting on her bump. "The baby is kicking again." Adrian walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. This man, who terrified prime ministers and dissolved corporations with a signature, looked at his sister with painful tenderness. He reached out and covered her hand with his. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. "We have billions, Clara. We have armies of lawyers. We have security. Why did you let yourself live like a pauper with that insect?" "I wanted to be normal," Clara admitted, tears welling up. "Mom and Dad, they were always miserable. The money made them paranoid. I thought if I had nothing, I'd find someone who loved me for me. And I thought Liam did. For 5 years, we were happy. We were a team." "He was using you," Julian said from the doorway. He was holding a tablet, his face illuminated by the blue light of financial charts. "I've been digging into his financials. He didn't just meet Sophia 2 months ago. He's been funneling money from your joint savings into a secret account for a year. He bought Sophia a Cartier bracelet with the money you saved for the baby's crib." Clara gasped. The cruelty of it was physical, like a punch to the gut. "That's not all," Julian continued, walking into the room. "The architecture firm he works for, Holt and Associates. Sophia's father, Marcus Holt, is the senior partner. Liam is up for a promotion to junior partner next week. They think they've just landed the contract for the new Hudson Spire project." Adrian stood up, buttoning his jacket. The tenderness vanished, replaced by the predator. "They think they landed it?" Adrian asked. "They're waiting on final approval from the lead investor." Julian smirked. "The lead investor is a shell company called Vanguard Properties." Adrian's smile was slow and shark-like. "And who owns Vanguard?" "We do," Julian said. "Or rather, we did as of 10 minutes ago. I just bought the parent company." Clara watched her brothers. It was a terrifying dance they did. They were the Vance brothers, orphaned young, raised by wolves in the boardroom. They protected their own with a savagery that the civilized world wasn't ready for. "So," Adrian said, checking his vintage Patek Philippe watch, "we own the project that makes or breaks Liam's career. We own the building he lives in. And by tomorrow morning, I intend to be the majority shareholder of the firm he works for." "What are you going to do?" Clara asked, fear mixing with a dark, satisfied curiosity. "We aren't going to fire him," Adrian said smoothly. "That's too easy. Firing him is a mercy. No, Clara. We are going to make him the king of New York. We are going to give him everything he ever wanted. We're going to let him climb so high that the air gets thin." Julian chimed in. "And then, when he's standing on top of the world, looking down at everyone, we're going to cut the mountain out from under him." Meanwhile, across town, Liam Sterling was drinking 25-year-old scotch in his penthouse. Sophia was redecorating. She had already thrown out all of Clara's books, replacing them with modern art sculptures that looked like twisted metal. "Babe," Sophia called out from the living room. "This place finally feels like us. It was so depressing before. All those thrift store blankets." Liam chuckled, loosening his tie. He felt lighter, free. No more worrying about coupons. No more Clara nagging him about saving for a college fund. He was with Sophia now. He was part of the Holt dynasty. His phone buzzed. It was Marcus Holt, Sophia's father. "Liam!" Marcus sounded breathless. "I just got the call. Vanguard Properties approved the Hudson Spire. We got the contract. It's a $300 million project." Liam nearly dropped his glass. "We got it? Officially?" "Signed and stamped," Marcus shouted. "And listen, the new investors, they specifically asked for you to be the lead architect. They loved your preliminary sketches. They said you're a visionary." Liam's chest swelled. "They asked for me. They want to meet you," Marcus said. "There's a gala this weekend, the Winter Solstice Ball at the Met. The investors will be there. Liam, this is it. You're making partner. Hell, if this goes well, you'll be running the firm in 5 years." Liam hung up the phone and grabbed Sophia, spinning her around. "We did it!" he roared. "I'm the lead on the Hudson Spire. I'm going to be famous, Soph. Real famous." Sophia kissed him passionately. "I told you, Liam. You just needed to trim the dead weight. Clara was holding you back. Look how fast you're flying now that she's gone." Liam felt a momentary twinge of guilt, a microscopic prick, but he washed it away with another sip of scotch. He was a visionary. He deserved this. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The lights of Manhattan twinkled like diamonds. Somewhere out there, Clara was probably crying in a cheap motel. It was sad, sure, but it was natural selection. He was the lion. She was the gazelle. "Get your best dress, Sophia," Liam said, staring at his reflection in the glass. "We're going to the Winter Solstice Ball, and we are going to own this city." The Winter Solstice Ball was the kind of event where the napkins were made of silk and the security guards were ex-Mossad. It was held in the Temple of Denda at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The guest list was a who's who of global power, tech moguls, royalty, and old money families that had owned New York since the Dutch landed. Liam Sterling had never felt so important. He stepped out of the limousine, a rental, though he told Sophia it was a company car, and adjusted his tuxedo. He had spent $6,000 on the suit. It was money he didn't technically have yet, but with the promotion coming, it didn't matter. Sophia was on his arm, wearing a red Valentino gown that screamed for attention. She looked beautiful, but in a sharp, hungry way. She was scanning the crowd, looking for photographers. "Flashbulbs to the left," she whispered, tilting her chin up. "Smile, Liam. You're the man of the hour." They walked up the grand staircase. Liam spotted Marcus Holt near the entrance, talking to a group of Japanese investors. "Liam," Marcus waved him over. "There he is, the genius behind the spire." The investors nodded politely. Liam shook hands, his palms sweating slightly. He felt like an imposter, but the adrenaline was intoxicating. "So, Marcus," Liam asked, scanning the room, "who are these new owners of Vanguard Properties? Have you met them?" "Not personally," Marcus admitted, grabbing a glass of champagne. "They're extremely private. European money. They operate through intermediaries. But their representative, a Mr. Smith, said the chairman is flying in tonight, specifically to announce your appointment." "The chairman?" Liam swallowed. "Coming here? For me?" "You're the golden boy," Marcus laughed, clapping him on the back. "Enjoy it." The lights in the vast hall dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd of 500 billionaires. A spotlight hit the stage set up in front of the ancient Egyptian temple. A man walked up to the microphone. It was the museum director. "Ladies and gentlemen," the director said, "tonight we are honored to introduce the new benefactors of the museum's architectural wing, and the new owners of the Vanguard Group, who have a special announcement regarding the city's skyline." Liam squeezed Sophia's hand. "This is it," he whispered. "Showtime." "Please welcome," the director boomed, "Mr. Adrian Vance and Mr. Julian Vance." The room erupted into whispers. The air was sucked out of the chamber. Vance. The name hit Liam like a physical blow. He froze. Everyone knew the Vance brothers. They were the modern-day Medicis. They didn't just have money. They had sovereignty. They owned shipping lines, tech conglomerates, and half of London real estate. Adrian and Julian walked onto the stage. They moved with the lazy grace of predators who had no natural enemies. They looked devastatingly powerful in their bespoke tuxedos. Liam stared. He had seen photos of them in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, but seeing them in person was different. They radiated danger. "Thank you," Adrian said, his voice deep and amplified, echoing off the stone walls. "My brother and I are pleased to be back in New York. We have acquired Vanguard properties because we believe in the future of this city." Julian stepped forward to the mic. "And specifically, we are interested in the Hudson Spire project. We believe it requires a unique vision." Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. "They know my work. The Vance brothers know my work. We have been reviewing the personnel for this project," Adrian continued, "and we have decided to make the lead architect the guest of honor tonight." Sophia squealed quietly. "Go!" she nudged him. "Go up there!" Liam took a step forward, a dopey grin forming on his face. He was about to walk toward the stage. "However," Adrian said, raising a hand, "we realized that the true vision behind a man's success is often the partner beside him. We believe in family. We believe in loyalty." Liam stopped. "Loyalty." "So," Julian said, a cruel smirk playing on his lips, "we would like to introduce the woman who will be cutting the ribbon on our new venture, the true heart of the project." The spotlight swung away from the stage. It swept across the crowd, blinding Liam for a second. It stopped at the top of the grand staircase. The double doors opened. A woman stood there. She was wearing a gown made of midnight blue velvet that hugged her pregnant form with regal elegance. Diamonds, real, heavy, flawless diamonds, glittered at her throat and ears. Her hair, usually tied back in a messy bun, was cascaded in polished waves over her shoulders. She looked like a queen from a myth. It was Clara. Liam blinked. He rubbed his eyes. "No," he whispered. That's not." "Who is that?" Sophia asked, jealous and confused. "Is that a model?" The woman began to descend the stairs. She didn't look at the floor. She looked straight ahead, her chin high. 2 security guards trailed her. As she got closer, the hush in the room deepened. She walked right past the stunned crowd. She walked straight toward the stage. Adrian Vance stepped down from the podium and held out his hand. The ruthless billionaire, who had made grown men cry in boardrooms, bowed his head slightly and took the woman's hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," Adrian said, his voice ringing with pride and a dark, protective fury, "may I introduce my sister, the majority shareholder of the Vance Empire, Clara Vance." The silence shattered. Cameras flashed like a lightning storm. The room exploded into gasps. Liam felt his knees buckle. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor, splashing Sophia's red dress. "Sister," Liam choked out. The word tasted like ash. "Vance?" Clara stood on the stage, flanked by her brothers. She looked out at the sea of faces. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they locked onto Liam. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She looked at him with the detached curiosity of a scientist looking at a bacteria sample. "Hello, everyone," Clara said into the microphone. Her voice was steady, stronger than Liam had ever heard it. "Thank you for coming. I have a few changes to make to the Hudson Spire project, starting with the architect." She paused, letting the tension build until it was unbearable. "But first," she said, her eyes still locked on Liam, "I'd like to enjoy the party. I hear the champagne is excellent, unlike the cheap sparkling wine my husband used to buy." The crowd laughed, thinking it was a joke. Liam didn't laugh. He couldn't breathe. He turned to Sophia. Her face was pale, her mouth hanging open. "You said she was an orphan," Sophia hissed. "You said she was nobody." I thought she was," Liam stammered. "She's a Vance, you idiot," Sophia shrieked, forgetting to whisper. "She could buy my father's firm with her pocket money." On stage, Julian leaned into the mic. "Please, enjoy the evening. And Mr. Sterling, don't leave. We have so much to discuss." The spotlight hit Liam. He was exposed. 500 people turned to look at the man who had evidently pissed off the most powerful family in the room. Liam wanted to run, but he couldn't move. He was a fly in a web, and the spiders were descending. The morning after the winter solstice ball, the sun rose over New York City with a cruel, blinding brightness. For Clara Vance, waking up in the presidential suite, the light was a promise of a new beginning. For Liam Sterling, it was an interrogation lamp. Liam hadn't slept. He had spent the night pacing the living room of the penthouse, frantically refreshing Google. The headlines were relentless. Cinderella story reversed. Architect dumps billionaire Vance heiress for mid-level manager's daughter. The billion-dollar mistake. How Liam Sterling fumbled the bag. Vance Empire acquires Holton Associates. Hostile takeover imminent. Sophia was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her Instagram. She had lost 3,000 followers overnight. The comments on her photos were brutal. "Downgrade of the century," one user wrote. "Imagine fumbling a Vance for a Holt. Embarrassing." "Stop pacing, Liam," Sophia snapped. "You're making me dizzy." "We need a plan," Liam muttered, his eyes bloodshot. "They can't just fire me. I have a contract, and I'm the father of her child. She can't cut me out. The courts will give me alimony. I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle." "You?" Sophia laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You don't have a lifestyle, Liam. You have debt. I have a lifestyle. Or I did, until you dragged my name through the mud." Suddenly, the elevator doors to the penthouse chimed. They slid open. 3 men walked in. Leading them wasn't Adrian or Julian. It was a man in a grey suit, holding a clipboard. Behind him were 2 uniformed NYPD officers. "Liam Sterling?" the man asked. "Who are you?" Liam demanded, trying to muster some authority. "You can't just barge in here. This is private property." "Actually, it's not," the man said calmly. "My name is Arthur Pym. I represent the holding company that owns this building. As of 9:00 a.m. this morning, your lease has been terminated due to a violation of the morality clause in your rental agreement." "Morality clause?" Liam sputtered. "That's archaic. You can't evict me for having a mistress." "We aren't evicting you for the mistress," Pym said, checking his clipboard. "We are evicting you for failure to pay rent. Apparently, the check for this month bounced. The funds in your account were frozen." Liam froze. He scrambled for his phone to check his banking app. Account status locked. Fraud investigation pending. "This is a mistake," Liam yelled. "My wife, your wife," Pym interrupted, "has filed a restraining order and a petition for divorce. The assets in the joint account were frozen pending a forensic audit. It seems there were some irregularities." large withdrawals made to purchase jewellery for a third party. Pym looked pointedly at the Cartier bracelet on Sophia's wrist. The officers stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling, you have 15 minutes to vacate the premises. Take only personal essentials. Anything purchased with joint funds remains pending the audit." "Sophia," Liam turned to her, desperate. "Call your dad. Tell him to send a lawyer. We can fight this." Sophia stood up. She looked at the police officers, then at the frantic, sweating man in front of her. She looked down at the Cartier bracelet. Slowly she unclasped the bracelet. It fell onto the glass coffee table with a heavy clink. "I'm not calling anyone," Sophia said coldly. "My father called me 10 minutes ago. He's been removed as senior partner. The Vance brothers bought the firm. Liam. They own everything. If I stay with you, I lose my trust fund." "Sophia?" Liam reached out. "Don't touch me," she hissed, stepping back. "You lied to me. You said she was nobody. You said you were the rising star. You're nothing but a liability." Sophia grabbed her purse. She didn't look back. She walked into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. Liam was left alone with the police. 15 minutes, Mr. Sterling," the officer said, tapping his watch. Liam threw clothes into a garbage bag. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely zip his fly. He grabbed his laptop, his toothbrush, and the one suit he had bought before he met Clara. He walked out of the penthouse into the hallway. The door locked behind him with a definitive click. He took the service elevator down to the street. It was raining again, just like the day he had kicked Clara out. He stood on the sidewalk, holding a trash bag of clothes. He hailed a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. Liam opened his mouth to say the Waldorf or the Ritz. Then he remembered his frozen accounts. He remembered the cash in his wallet, maybe $60. "Jersey City," Liam whispered, feeling the bile rise in his throat. "Take me to the Motel 6. The Manhattan Family Court was a dreary place, usually filled with heartbroken parents and bored lawyers. But today, courtroom 4B was packed. The press was barred from the room, but the atmosphere was electric. Liam Sterling sat at the defendant's table. He looked 10 years older. His suit was ill-fitting. He had lost 20 pounds. He was living in a basement apartment in Queens, working freelance drafting jobs under a fake name because no firm in New York would hire the idiot who dumped a Vance. He stared at the door, waiting. He had sued for custody. It was his last card. He knew he couldn't get her money, the prenup his own lawyers had drafted. Thinking she was poor, ironically protected her separate assets perfectly. But the child was his blood. If he got partial custody, he got child support. He got a tether to the billions. The bailiff announced, "All rise." The judge entered, and then Clara entered. Liam's breath hitched. She looked spectacular. She wore a cream-colored power suit that looked soft and sharp at the same time. She held herself with a grace that made the fluorescent lights of the courtroom seem like chandeliers. But it was what she was carrying that broke him. In a baby carrier, strapped to her chest, was a sleeping infant. A tuft of dark hair, the same shade as Liam's, poked out from a pink blanket. His daughter. Clara sat down, flanked by 3 lawyers who cost more per hour than Liam made in a year. Adrian Vance sat in the row behind her, his arms crossed, watching Liam like a hawk watching a field mouse. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, peering over her glasses, "you have petitioned for 50-50 custody and spousal support." "Yes, Your Honor." Liam stood up, his voice trembling slightly. "I am the father. I have a right to be in my daughter's life. I made a mistake in my marriage. Yes. But that shouldn't preclude me from being a dad. I want to help raise her." Clara's lead lawyer, a woman named Eleanor Sharp, stood up, Your Honor, Mr. Sterling does not want to raise the child. He wants to rent her." "Objection!" Liam's court-appointed lawyer shouted weakly. "We have evidence," Eleanor continued, "that Mr. Sterling has accrued over $200,000 in gambling debt in the last 4 months. We have text messages where he tells a friend, and I quote, 'Once I get the kid, the Vances will have to pay me to keep quiet. That baby is my golden ticket.'" The courtroom gasped. Liam turned pale. That was out of context." "Furthermore," Eleanor said, placing a thick file on the judge's bench, "we have a character assessment. Mr. Sterling abandoned his pregnant wife in a snowstorm. He has no fixed address suitable for an infant. He has no steady income." The judge flipped through the file. Her expression grew darker with every page. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, "this court finds your petition offensive." "But I'm the father," Liam cried out, tears of frustration and desperation streaming down his face. "Clara, please, look at me. I'm the dad. You can't just erase me." Clara stood up. She touched her lawyer's arm, signaling her to pause. She walked to the witness stand. She didn't look at the judge. She turned her body fully toward Liam. "You aren't a father, Liam," Clara said softly. Her voice wasn't angry. It was just disappointed. "A father protects. A father sacrifices. You threw us away because you thought you could do better." "I was scared," Liam sobbed. "I was stupid. I still love you, Clara, I swear." "You don't love me," Clara said. "You love the idea of who I am now. You love the name Vance. But you hated Clara Sterling. You hated the woman who clipped coupons and rubbed your back when you were tired. That was the woman who loved you. And you killed her." Clara looked down at the sleeping baby. "This is Aurora," Clara said. "She is beautiful. She is smart. And she will never know you." "You can't do that," Liam screamed. "I can," Clara said. "Mr. Sterling, do you know who holds the debt for your gambling addiction? Do you know who bought the promissory notes from the casinos in Atlantic City?" Liam blinked. "What?" Adrian Vance stood up in the back row. "I did," he said, his voice deep and resonant. Clara nodded. "My brother owns your debt, Liam. All of it. We could send you to prison for fraud. We could garnish your wages for the rest of your life. We could bury you." Liam slumped in his chair, defeated. "What do you want?" "I want you to sign," Clara said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "Full termination of parental rights. You walk away. You never contact us again. You never speak to the press." "And if I do?" Liam whispered. "Then the debt is forgiven," Clara said. "And I will give you a check for $50,000. Enough to start over somewhere else. Somewhere far away. Like Alaska." Liam looked at the paper. Then he looked at the baby. If he signed, he lost his daughter forever. If he didn't sign, he went to jail, and the Vances would crush him anyway. He was a coward. He had always been a coward. Liam picked up the pen. His hand shook. He didn't look at Clara. He didn't look at Aurora. He signed his name, Liam Sterling. He pushed the paper back. "Done," he choked out. Clara picked up the paper. She didn't gloat. She just felt a profound sense of relief. "Goodbye, Liam," she said. She turned and walked out of the courtroom. Adrian and the lawyers formed a phalanx around her. Liam sat alone in the empty courtroom for a long time. He looked at the check for $50,000. It was a lot of money. But as he held it, he realized it wasn't a prize. It was the price tag for his soul. And he had sold it cheap. The Manhattan skyline had changed. Piercing the clouds above Hudson Yards stood the completed Vance Spire, formerly the Hudson Spire. It was a marvel of glass and titanium, a twisting helix that looked like a shard of the future stabbed into the heart of the city. It was the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, and tonight was the grand opening. Clara Vance stood in the penthouse suite, her penthouse suite, adjusting the strap of her emerald silk gown. She wasn't the scared, pregnant girl shivering at a bus stop anymore. At 28, she was the CEO of Vance Architecture and the doting mother of a 2-year-old toddler, Aurora. "You look like war, Clara," Julian said, walking in with 2 flutes of vintage Dom Perignon. "And I mean that as a compliment." "I feel like war," Clara replied, taking the glass. She looked out at the city below. "Is everything secure?" "The security is tighter than the Pentagon," Adrian added, entering the room while adjusting his cufflinks. "We have facial recognition scanners at every entry point. The guest list is vetted. The paparazzi are corralled in the press pen 3 blocks away." "Good," Clara said. "I don't want anything ruining tonight. This building is my statement to the world that I didn't just survive Liam Sterling. I buried him." Down in the lobby, the atmosphere was electric. The lobby was a cavern of white marble and gold, filled with 3,000 of the world's elite. Senators, movie stars, and tech moguls mingled, eager to catch a glimpse of the reclusive Vance heiress. But outside, in the shadows of the loading dock, a figure watched. Sophia Holt looked nothing like the polished socialite she had been 2 years ago. Her hair was brittle and dyed a harsh black to hide her identity. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a catering uniform she had stolen from a laundry truck an hour ago. After Liam's fall, Sophia hadn't just lost her status. She had become a pariah. Her father, Marcus, had lost his firm and blamed her for the destruction of the Holt legacy. He had cut her off without a cent. She had spent the last 2 years bouncing between cheap apartments and abusive boyfriends, her hatred for Clara Vance fermenting like poison in her veins. She didn't want money anymore. She wanted blood. "Hey, you!" a security guard shouted near the loading bay. "Catering staff enters through door B." "Sorry." Sophia pitched her voice high, keeping her head down. "I'm late with the champagne refill." She scurried past him, clutching a heavy tote bag. Inside wasn't champagne. It was 3 canisters of industrial-grade red paint and a lighter. She didn't have a complex plan. She just wanted to get to the main ballroom, rush the stage when Clara was speaking, and drench the Ice Queen in red paint while screaming about how the Vances ruined her life. It would be live-streamed to millions. It would be the humiliation Clara deserved. Sophia navigated the service corridors, her heart hammering. She knew the layout of the building better than anyone. Liam had left the blueprints on their kitchen table back when he thought he was the architect. She found the service elevator and took it to the 80th floor, the grand ballroom. The doors opened. The noise of the party washed over her. The smell of expensive perfume and truffle oil made her stomach turn. She stepped out, blending into the sea of waiters moving trays of hors d'oeuvres. On the far side of the room, a stage was set up. And there she was, Clara Vance. She was laughing at something the mayor of New York was saying. She looked radiant, untouchable, glowing with a happiness that Sophia felt belonged to her. "You stole my life," Sophia thought, gripping the bag. "You stole my Liam. You stole my future." The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed. "Please welcome the CEO of Vance Architecture, Clara Vance." Applause thundered. Clara walked to the podium. "Thank you," Clara began, her voice ringing clear. 2 years ago, I stood in the rain not far from here, thinking my life was over. I didn't know that sometimes you have to be broken down to be built back up. This building is a testament to resilience." Sophia saw her opening, The security guards were looking at the stage, distracted. She pushed past a waiter, knocking a tray of glasses to the floor. Crash! People turned. Sophia didn't stop. She sprinted toward the stage, ripping the lid off the paint canister. "Clara Vance!" Sophia screamed, her voice shrill and unhinged. "You witch! You ruined everything!" The crowd gasped. Clara stopped speaking. She looked down from the stage, spotting the woman in the catering uniform rushing at her. Time seemed to slow down. Adrian and Julian, standing in the wings, moved instantly. They were fast, but they were 20 feet away. Sophia was 5 feet away, winding up to throw the paint. Clara didn't flinch. She didn't scream for help. She simply stepped to the side, grabbed the heavy microphone stand, and swung it. Thwack! The base of the stand connected with Sophia's wrist, mid-throw. The canister flew out of Sophia's hand, spinning in the air, and exploded. Not on Clara, but all over Sophia. Thick, oil-based red paint coated Sophia from head to toe. She slipped on the slick puddle and crashed to the floor, sliding right to the foot of the stage. The music stopped. The room was dead silent. Sophia lay there, gasping, looking like a monster from a horror movie, dripping in red. She looked up, wiping paint from her eyes, and saw Clara standing above her. Clara's dress was pristine. Not a drop had touched her. Clara looked down at the woman who had once mocked her poverty. "Sophia," Clara said into the microphone, her voice amplified across the silent ballroom. "I see you're still trying to make a scene. But darling, red really isn't your color." The crowd erupted, not in fear, but in laughter. It started as a titter and grew into a roar. The elites of New York were laughing at Sophia Holt. Julian and Adrian reached the stage, followed by 4 security guards. They hauled Sophia to her feet. "Get off me!" Sophia shrieked, flailing, flinging paint everywhere. "She's the villain! She's the monster!" "Get her out of here," Adrian commanded, his voice cold as the grave. "And make sure the press gets a good photo of her on the way out. I want this mugshot on every front page by morning." As they dragged Sophia away, kicking and screaming, Clara didn't look away. She watched until the doors closed. Then she turned back to the crowd. She smoothed her hair. "My apologies," Clara said calmly. "It seems we had some uninvited trash to take out. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, the future." The applause that followed was deafening. It was the sound of a coronation. The story of Liam Sterling and Sophia Holt became a cautionary tale in New York City, a modern legend whispered at cocktail parties. Sophia was charged with assault, trespassing, and attempted property damage. Because of her prior harassment of the Vance family, the judge showed no mercy. She served 18 months in Rikers Island. When she got out, she left New York. The last anyone heard, she was working as a bartender in a dive bar in Reno, Nevada, telling anyone who would listen that she almost owned the Hudson Spire. Nobody believed her. Liam Sterling never left Alaska. The $50,000 Clara gave him ran out in 2 years. He works at a hardware store now, mixing paint and cutting keys. He lives in a small cabin, alone. He has a scrapbook hidden under his bed, clippings of Clara and Aurora from magazines. He stares at the daughter he sold for a gambling debt, and the regret is a cold, constant ache in his chest, colder than the Alaskan winter. As for Clara, she didn't just survive. She evolved. She never remarried, though not for lack of proposals. She found that her life was full enough with her work, her brothers, and her daughter. Aurora Vance grew up knowing she was loved. She had her mother's kindness and her uncle's fierce protective streak. She knew her father was gone, but she never felt an absence because her family filled every corner of her heart. The final image of our story isn't one of revenge. but of peace. It is Clara, sitting on the terrace of her penthouse, watching the sunset over the city she conquered. Adrian and Julian are playing chess nearby. Aurora is chasing a butterfly. Clara takes a sip of tea and smiles. She realizes that Liam did her a favor that rainy night. He didn't kick her out of her home. He kicked her out of a cage and forced her to find her wings, and oh, how she flew. And that, my friends, is the end of the saga. It's a brutal reminder that when you dig a grave for someone else, you usually fall in it yourself. Liam and Sophia thought power was about money and status. They didn't realize that real power is loyalty, family, and the strength to walk away when you're not valued. I have to ask, do you think Clara's final line to Sophia was too harsh, or was it the perfect mic drop? Red really isn't your color. I think I'm going to print that on a t-shirt. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please do me a huge favor. 1. Hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find more drama lovers like us. 2. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder of their own worth. 3. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week, we are diving into a story sent in by a subscriber about a woman who faked her own death to catch her husband cheating, and it goes horribly wrong. You do not want to miss it. Until then, stay kind, but take no prisoners. Bye.